Okay, so in this last video what we're going to do is talk about adding real numbers, subtracting real numbers, and dividing and multiplying real numbers. Adding is in 1.5, subtracting is 1.6, and multiplication and division is 1.7. And the challenge of this is we have signed numbers. So there's a lot of tricks of the trade, and hopefully I'll explain some of my ideas as we move along. Alright, so at the starters what we have is we are adding two numbers. We're adding the positive number 9 and we're adding it to the number -4. And so again, if we looked at a number line, right, the number line way of saying this is that I would go to 9 on my number line, right about there, and then since I'm adding -4, I would move 4 paces to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I end up at 5. So there would be a number line explanation for what's going on. Another way to think about that is in terms of its absolute value. There's 9 positive things, there's 4 negative things, so there's more positive stuff. How much more? 9 minus 4. So if I take 9 and I take away the if I take the 9 positive stuff and subtract the negative stuff, right, we end up with 5 positive things. So positive 5. Right? Now that brings us into some territory, because notice in order to perform the addition I actually performed a subtraction, and that's B. Right? What is 9 take away 4? Well, we already know that that answer is 5. Alright? And so for all the reasons that I gave you. But what I want to point out here is that subtraction is actually the addition of an opposite. That is the way you need to think of subtraction. Subtraction is the addition of an opposite. So if I say 9 take away 4, that is the same thing as saying 9 plus -4. And we kind of see that in A and B. So on the other side I have a subtraction statement. I'm taking the number 9 and I'm subtracting the number 4. What I'm changing it to is the addition of an opposite. The 9 stayed the same, subtraction changed to an addition statement, and then the 4, right, turned into the -4. And both of these are equal to 5. Subtraction is the addition of that number's opposite. So I'm subtracting 4. That's the same thing as adding its opposite, -4. Subtraction is the addition opposite. So that's going to take you long, long ways. Alright? So letter C, we have several things going on here. Lots of ways we can do this. What I'm going to choose to do is rearrange this. Right? There's a property of mathematics called the commutative property, and I'm going to rearrange it so that all my positive stuff is collected and all my negative stuff is collected. Of course, if you wanted to, you could have traveled left to right as well, gotten the same answer. When I do this, 2 plus 6, well, that combines up to 8. When I take a debt of -5 and I add a debt of -4, then I'm basically -9 in the whole. So basically I have $8 and I'm adding it to a debt of $9. Right? Or said another way, you can think of this as 8 minus 9. Subtraction is the addition of an opposite. You add a negative, it's the same thing as subtracting. Either way you cut it, if I have 8 and I take away 9, we're left with -1 as our final answer. Alright, so hopefully that, again, decent review, some nice algebraic rules. D, we have -4 and we're minusing 7. I'm going to take advantage of the fact that subtraction, right, -4, subtraction is the addition, what we're subtracting is 7, so that's the same thing as adding -7. So I'm in debt, I have more debt. How much debt am I in? I'm -11, and we just did E, right? Because again, if you think of a number line, I'm at -4, and then I'm subtracting 7, or I'm adding -7, which means I go back 7 paces, right? Which will take us to -11 on a number line. Alright? Or so adding, if I'm in debt, I add more debt, I'm deeper in debt. If I have a hole and I dig a deeper hole, I'm very deep in the hole. Alright? However you want to, whatever language you use to do that. F is a little bit more challenging because we have subtraction statements all over. I'm one of those people who like to basically, till we get very used to it, change my subtractions to additions, because that's the rule and it helps organize. Addition's usually nicer. So -10, I'm subtracting 5. Well, that's the same thing as adding -5. And then we're subtracting -2. Well, that's the same thing as adding 2. So notice in both cases, subtraction is the addition of an opposite. Subtraction is the addition of an opposite. Subtracting 5 is the same thing as adding negative 5. Subtracting negative 2 is the same thing as adding 2. Subtraction is the addition of an opposite. Traveling left to right, these two give us negative 15 plus 2. And then negative 15 plus 2, well, that will result in a negative 13. Alrighty, and again, even on the number line, negative 13 is way over here. I'm adding 2, which puts us at negative, I'm at negative 15, and I add 2, move twice over, and I'm at 13, negative 13. Alright, or if you use this idea, there's 15 negative things and 2 positive things, so we're much more negative. How much more? 15 take away 2 negative things. So lots of ways to think about that. Absolute value, like the book's showing you, addition of an opposites, but hopefully that was some decent, some rules of addition and subtraction. Now into multiplication. When we're multiplying, again, we can travel left to right, or you can combo these any way you want. I'll travel left to right. So negative 3 times negative 2 results in a 6. A negative times a negative is a positive. Different rule than addition, right? So we have 2 separate rules. Then, of course, now we're multiplying 6 to negative 5. A positive times a negative is a negative, and we get an answer of 30. In H, we have 4 things being multiplied, so how about I do it 2 at a time? So negative times a negative results in a positive 2. A negative times another negative results in 24. So now a positive times a positive is a positive, and 2 times 24 is 48. And so there would be our answer for H. In I, we're doing a division. If you want, that division statement turns into that fraction. The reason I want you to see that is because a negative divided by a negative satisfies the same rule that a negative times a negative is. So we're looking at a positive answer here. 6 goes into 18 3 times. So we have a positive 3. What's nice about that is we can actually check this answer, right? Negative 18 over negative 6 is positive 3, because if I took negative 6 and multiplied it by 3, I'd get negative 18. So we can check our divisions by performing a multiplication, or vice versa, our multiplications can turn into divisions. So note, we could also say that negative 18 divided by 3 results in a negative 6, right? For kind of all the different way to write that multiplication here. So take negative 18 divided by 3, you end up with negative 6, or the idea that a negative divided by a positive is a negative. All right, and then same thing here. We have 28 divided by negative 7. Well, positive divided by a negative is a negative, and then if you just think in terms of fractions, 7 goes in itself once and goes in there 4 times. So we're talking about negative 4, or you could do the long division, right? Whatever you choose. 0 divided by 13. Let me just start off by telling you that the answer to this is 0. All right, story-wise is because if you have 13 items and you choose to use none of those items, you have 0. Right? Or another story, if I have nothing and I divvy up it, I divvy up nothing into 13 pieces, I have 13 pieces of nothing, so I have 0. All right? Or if you go this route, right, this actually checks out. 13 times 0 is 0. So since this is a true statement, that means that that's a true statement. So 0 divided by 13 is 0. You can take it to the bank. 0 divided by any number is always going to be 0. That's different than here. 8 divided by 0, right? Well, it can't be 0, because if it was, right, we'd have this statement, but that doesn't imply that, right? This would be 0 over 8 equals 0. So even if we try to invent a story, I have nothing, and then I want you to use 8 pieces of that nothing. You can't do that, right? That's physically impossible to have nothing and then get, it would be like coming to class with an empty bag and then giving you guys 8 candy bars. It's impossible, all right? So this is what we mathematicians call undefined. So division by 0 is bad mathematics. It's undefined. Dividing something into 0 is always going to be 0. If you divvy up nothing, you get nothing. If you have nothing and try to divvy it up, there's no way you can do it. You're undefined. So hopefully that gives you a really quick rundown of adding and subtracting and multiplying and dividing some numbers. I think in the homework there's going to be some decimals in there, so hopefully that'll motivate some nice discussion on our Canvas discussion board, and we can get to see more of that and learn from each other. Thank you for your time and effort, and that's basically your answer key in your pretest. Talk to you guys later.